our lives in many ways, and it's called Turbulence in Workforce Development, Education, and Business. We revisited this presentation with an eye to what has changed in terms of private-public partnerships. And we were surprised that while so much is different, that there was a very durable and strong need for businesses and education providers and workforce training providers to collaborate and work together. We made a few adjustments to the presentation to adjust to this new normal, and I think you'll find that there's so much relevance right now for us in the world of adult education to work with our business partners and find ways to help our communities be stronger and more durable as we work into a new period of workforce development. I'm Manson Green. I'm the State Director for Adult Education and Literacy here in the state of Texas, and our commitment and desire to work with businesses and to develop workforce solutions is about as big as our state. We're part of a national no-cost service that we provide communities. These are your GED, high school equivalency, ESL classes that you find in your communities that are at no cost being offered. And what we want to present today is how that service that's in every community of the United States and the territories is available to work with businesses to find ways to build communities and build worker strength and company durability. I'm joined by a group of wonderful presenters, two of them representing Tyson Foods Corporation, a major manufacturer in the United States here, and then one of them, Angela Johnson, is a program manager for one of our programs here in Texas. So Donna and Emily will bring in a private sector perspective of how Angela and myself and others in the state of Texas are working within Tyson Foods to develop a strategy to help frontline team members be productive and build their skills in English, citizenship, computer skills, and other areas to help themselves, their communities, and their families. So what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about these grants that every state has that are there to really provide services to the community. And oftentimes you'll find these grants are providing your high school equivalency and ESL classes. And then sometimes less popularly are the fact that some of those programs in the country are working with businesses. And that is an area that we're seeing growth in, but it still represents a smaller share of what's happening in the adult education community, and one that we would hope to see grow, and also one that would help be a professional area that more and more businesses would want to get engaged in as they work with their frontline workers in particular, in helping them upskill those workers and find ways to reduce areas of attrition within companies. You can understand the effectiveness of these programs at a national level in the fact that we have a performance measure for these federally funded programs that is called effectiveness in serving employers. So I'm measured, and my peers in other states are measured by just how effective we are in meeting the needs of our business community. It's an area I think there's lots of growth to go in. And I know this because in Texas, we're very proud that out of all of the workplace literacy programs in the country, Texas's share of those programs nationally is 22%. So we do 22% of the employer-based programs in the whole country in Texas. So I pose that as a challenge to my peers in other states and to those local programs that are looking for new ways to expand what type of service they can offer to their communities. When we looked at this, we started to think, and I think Donna and Emily and Angela will agree, that there's kind of a continuum of the effectiveness of these employer-focused programs. And this is kind of what we want to talk about today, is what does good look like when we're implementing workplace literacy programs? So on the more transactional dimension of this, these would be programs that are short-term, offered with a business. They're offered to address a very discrete skill, perhaps, and they're often characterized by not having a lot of analysis and development done at the onset, and thus often at the conclusion, the results aren't near as effective as the education provider nor the businesses would hope. On the more enlightened side of the scale of these workplace literacy programs, we have programs that are based on direct evidence. They review what the workers need, what the employer needs, and what the performance framework is for the federal funding. And so those are the programs that are characterized by being way more collaborative. They have an agreement that the program may evolve as it grows within the company and things may change, and that is fine, versus one where we come in with one idea and we stick with it, and if it doesn't succeed, no one gets creative around that idea. So this evolution, I think, is an important part of how we'll see our presenters talk about how their programs have grown within the company. And it's this continual growth where the business comes back for more and wants to grow and bring more workers in, versus the ones that said, well, we tried that with the public agency, we tried that with the college, the school district, it didn't work out, and that wasn't a good experience for the company. We see the effective Enlightened programs, ones where they grow, sustain, and go into new dimensions, because the education provider is a solution provider for the business. So typical questions that you might have, and we're going to address through this audience engagement virtually, are things like, how are these programs funded? Why would employers invest in them? What do they look like? And Angela's going to talk quite a bit about what those models look like in the Houston area. And then we'll hear from Don and Emily talk about, from a company lens, what do those programs look like for them nationally? What characterizes a successful model? What does good look like? And then we want to end with, how do you begin in your local area? What do you need to know? And what kind of resources can help you proceed? So a little bit about how it's funded. And this is a framework that's the same throughout the country. So every state in the union and the territories, you're going to find a very similar framework. The funding comes from the United States Department of Education. Here it comes to Texas, and we're at a workforce agency, so it comes to the Texas Workforce Commission. But in your agency, it may be the public school agency, it may be the higher education agency. And those funds are competed through a grant process that is relatively the same in all the states. And local providers, local schools, community-based organizations, colleges, higher education organizations, and other private and partners and public partners can participate in the grant competition and potentially win a grant. In our example today, Harris County Department of Education in Houston is one of the grantees that was part of a consortium that won the grant here in the state of Texas. And then Harris County Department of Education, your local provider, will work with the company, in this case Tyson Foods, but will outreach and work with the company to provide at no cost to the business a solution in terms of ESL, high school equivalency, workforce training, citizenship, computer literacy. It's no cost to the company in terms of the service, but the companies do have costs in terms of the commitments they provide. And I think you will see from Tyson's commitment, there's quite a bit of company contribution to these programs that really lends them towards success. So why would employers choose to implement an ESL program? This is kind of like the big why question. Why would a business even bother getting involved in something like this? And we've really found that there's a lot of different dimensions to this, and those have changed as we've gone into kind of a dramatically different labor market. But employers are often competing for workers amongst themselves, especially in small communities. And they're determining now what that worker demand will be and what the need for upskilling workers into new roles and processes will look like as the workplace evolves in our new environment. I think workers across the country and companies across the country, especially here in Texas, as we'll see, are challenged by English and educational attainment gaps. Our population in many areas is getting less and less high school attainment, and some states are doing better at addressing that than others. And then second language and English language learners are growing and growing as our immigrant population in America grows and makes it stronger. So using workplace literacy programs is one way a company can provide some durability within the company and help as a retention incentive and help lift workers within the organization. There's also this need for addressing the rapidly retiring baby boomers, and I'm going to talk about that situation in Texas. But businesses need flexible talent. They can't buy their way out of these skills gaps. They really need to find ways that they can work with the money that's already in communities, could leverage that funding and work with partners to find winning solutions for both parties and the worker and the business to remain competitive for that community. And this is a much better alternative than turning to outsourcing or temporary labor. We see automation coming on board, and those types of things. So there's a great win here for the business and the community to build these partnerships. I want to talk about the Texas story, and this is a story not dissimilar from many areas of the country, but it's one that I think in Texas we saw because of our proximity to the border. We saw very early on, really since the mid 80s and 90s, we saw the growth of our immigrant workforce in Texas. And here, the Dallas Federal Reserve did a wonderful report a few years ago, really talking about this from an economic development perspective. But Texas, like many other states, has this young, growing immigrant population. It's almost exclusively fueled by migration of foreign workers from outside our country. So the growth of our workforce in Texas, meaning as people retire, the future replacement workforce is becoming increasingly immigrant and increasingly thus underskilled and limited English, because our immigrant populations are typically entering America with less skills, less attainment, and less English. So we as public agencies and English as a second language and adult education, our job is to get that workforce ready to keep the economy healthy, keep the tax base strong, and keep the companies within our states. And every state faces these challenges. Here's an image that really shows it in Texas in a very dramatic way. The blue coloring is the growth of the immigrant workforce, Hispanic workforce here in Texas, and then the white non-Hispanic workforce is the orange color. And as you can see, our non-Hispanic white workforce is aging and slowly retiring. And then if we look at our immigrant workforce, it's growing and younger. So this is the future workforce in Texas. It's dramatically told here in Texas, but these trends are very similar across the country, and especially in urban areas. So part of understanding adult education and workforce development is really understanding demographics and state demography. And everybody out there listening that's interested in really where your state is going needs to turn to their state demographer's office to look for the trends in your local community and your state, because this is the bellwether of where things are going. And I think Texas is that trendsetter in terms of the immigrant change in the workforce and what it's doing to our business needs in terms of hiring and training and upskilling. Part of that immigrant workforce, though, it's a very diverse workforce in that largely underskilled and limited English, but within that workforce, actually lots of college educated and well-trained immigrants. And we often understand the immigrant, new American, through a lens of underskilled, but it's just not the case. In Texas, we have hundreds of thousands of immigrants with limited English, but with college degrees. And we see the share here in recent data in the big border cities of San Antonio, South Texas, and El Paso, with double-digit shares of college-educated Mexicans in their community. So this was a review of just the Mexican population coming into America, and we see double-digit shares of college-educated. So these are workers that are highly trainable, they're very skilled, they're ready to go, and they've been dislocated from their professional networks in their home countries, and that means they're probably doubly motivated to re-enter and leverage the skills that they're bringing into America. And that growth has really accelerated in the last 3 years. You see the college-educated share in Texas going up 18% since 2013, 2017. So the other driving reasons for companies to get engaged, they want to grow talent within. You'll hear this from Tyson for sure. Companies desire to promote from within. These are workers that have valuable language and cultural assets. So if you have a diverse workplace, what better than to have a supervisor that's bilingual and understands the customs of the frontline workforce? They know the company's systems, they're trusted. So promoting within brings a lot of value to the company in terms of many tangible and less tangible measures. It's an untapped potential. These tenured workers, they know the processes, they're tested, and sometimes they're just languishing because there isn't a workplace literacy program to help them gain the skills they need, the English they need to compete for higher skilled jobs. And especially these skilled immigrants that may be working frontline but have a degree in business or in engineering. They could surely be leveraged in other resources within the company. But because the company perhaps has never looked into that or never asked the question when they interview individuals for employment, they may not know that that untapped potential is there in front of them in their own workforce in the front line. Companies desire to be corporate citizens. They want to be strong, good community members. They desire to build a very literate community, a banked community that's active and upwardly mobile, because that helps the corporation, that helps new hiring, that helps the strength of the community. And oftentimes in rural areas, and we'll hear this from Tyson Foods, the company is the largest employer in the community. So they have a strong need to be good stewards to many dimensions of the community. I want to turn it over now. We're going to hear specifically from Angela Johnson here, one of our grantees in Texas at the Harris County Department of Education in Houston. So Angela, I'm going to take it away and I'll run your slides for you.
Thank you, Anson. Harris County Department of Education is an adult education provider. We're located in Houston, Texas. Each year we serve approximately 7,000 students. The majority of those students are speakers of other languages, and they are coming to our program with a myriad of needs. Oftentimes, those needs may include language development, but it may include language development as well as workforce development and skill development. So we are excited to be a part of this world of adult education. Adult education doesn't look like it looked maybe even 5 years ago, 10 years ago. We now consider ourselves an arm of workforce development for the state of Texas. And so in the next slide, you'll be able to see some of the employer partners that we've worked with. And those employer partners are vast. They represent very varied industries, both small organizations, medium, large, mega organizations. Like we've mentioned earlier, our partners at Tyson, where there's a national initiative to work with employers, Tyson plants across the country. And then we have local organizations and regional organizations that span the gamut from construction to healthcare and food production. So adult education is a very flexible vehicle that can be used as an intermediary to work between employers and Texas Workforce Commissions, our Workforce Board, to be able to provide support where it's needed to ensure that we have skilled individuals to be able to take advantage of these employment opportunities as these present in the industries. So adult education, again, if you've worked with adult education many years ago, it looks very different than it did then, I promise. And so we refer to the work that we do now as Adult Education 2.0. Why 2.0? It's a remake, it's revamped, everything is completely transformed in what we do. And we no longer consider ourselves to have one customer. Adult Education has two customers, and that includes the employers as well as the adult learners. So we ensure that our program is able to respond in a way that's appropriate for employers. Employers need to focus on the bottom line. We need to move very quickly. We need to be able to have decision makers at the table to be able to create programs and be responsive to the industry and meet their needs, as well as adult learners. They are our primary stakeholders. They are primarily why we exist. And so focusing on the employers, focusing on adult learners, really required us to have a dramatic shift in our focus in our program statewide. And I think, as Anson mentioned earlier, I think we do this very well. I think we, in terms of the support across the programs across the nation, I think Texas does it very well because it's very clear and our mandates are very clear that we have two customers, the employer as well as the adult learner. And so with that being said, one size does not fit all. When you think about a workforce literacy program, you have to begin thinking out of the box, out of the gate. And so it's often very highly customized, but it's not always the case. Oftentimes employers may need something very traditional. It's their first opportunity to work with an adult ed program. And so oftentimes they're really looking at maybe what we consider a very traditional program, maybe just ESL classes. Perhaps it's something to help employees to be able to take advantage of um, opportunities within the organization to be able to get a promotion. So it may just be language acquisition. It may be just one particular skill that an employee, a group of employees may need to develop. Uh, Other than that, it's often very customized. And so when you think of adult ed, we think of ourselves as a part of the puzzle that comes into a program to solve a problem or to participate in solving a problem. Oftentimes, those classes are held at the employer's work site before and after a shift, and we actually think that is a better model simply because it makes it more convenient for the employee, especially if they've had a long day of work. And then for the adult ed provider, it gives us an opportunity to be in the environment and experience the culture of the organization. It also gives us an opportunity to develop rich relationships with our employer partners and the decision makers. Oftentimes, the classes can be tied to incentives, promotions, or recognition, and especially performance expectations. So you can consider the performance of some of the employees in the classes to be tied directly to their annual performance appraisals. It may include incentives in terms of gift cards. It could be just simply recognition for going above and beyond. One of the most important things that I would suggest, and I think that should be a part of every workforce literacy program, regardless of whether it's customized or whether it's very traditional, is patience and flexibility. And so remember, you're merging two organizations, two different cultures, two different groups of people who are subject matter experts in two completely different areas. So that requires patience and flexibility. But the value, one of the greatest values is that there is leveraged resources and we can do more with the same amount of funding. So when we think about adult education and what those programs can look like and what those models might appear to be as we're developing and transforming our the work that we do in the community, I'd like to share this model. So Anson talked earlier about untapped potential, and he talked about students who just simply languish in mismatched occupations. This young man that is presented here is his name is Kelvis, and he came into our adult education program as an ESL student. We recognized that this young man had a completely different set of skill sets because he was actually a physician in his native country, in his home country of Venezuela. And so at that time, we placed him in a ESL for professionals course, and he participated in that course for 2 semesters. Part of our role in working with Kelvis was to help him to get back to the industry where he was highly skilled, and that was healthcare. He had worked for 2 years as a taxi and Uber driver, completely, overskilled for the job and just completely mismatched. And so Kelvis began working in our program, and we worked with him to take the requisite exams and tests that he needed. And he began working as a surgical tech. Surgical assistant for a local hospital. So when you think about adult education, these are some of the things that we can do to be able to help people to benefit the industry and the local economy. When we work with partners in adult education, those partners are often large organizations. They can be mom and pops. They can be well-known organizations such as Houston Methodist. And Houston Methodist certainly has their own training program and they have their own training groups, but they needed to partner with an organization that focused primarily on developing the skills of basic skills, reading, writing, and math for a particular group of employees. And so Houston Methodist came to us with an interesting proposition, and that was for us to leverage our resources and provide ESL classes that would provide language acquisition for a certain group of employees. And they had specific needs, such as improving workplace safety, improving customer service, as well as engaging patients and families during the course of the day. So basically, they had a highly skilled group of employees who were able to perform fairly well in the job that they were doing. But as they moved about the hospital, there were concerns about their ability to recognize safety and safety cues within the workplace and to be able to communicate with patients and families throughout the course of the day. And so Harris County Department of Ed partnered with Houston Methodist to develop customized ESL classes to focus on very specific areas. We are excited to say that this project will be expanded to include additional classes at Houston Methodist, hopefully working with credentialed groups. But for now, we're happy to say that this is something that was possible at Houston Methodist and something that's available through all of your adult ed providers throughout the state of Texas. Transactional to enlightened partnerships. Transactional partnerships are very limited in their scope. Anson mentioned this earlier. So when we think about the hallmark of dynamic employer partnerships, among many things, it's highly relational and it allows for ebb and flow. It allows for gains and break evens and sometimes what may appear initially to be losses in employer partnerships. But remember, you are working with employers who know a lot about their bottom line, but have to learn more about adult ed and what our bottom lines are. And our bottom lines are very simple. We are here to support the employers. We're here to build the tax base, and we're here to provide basic skills and credential attainment. So in two examples that we have here, we have an employer partner that was provided an opportunity to partner with adult education, as well as a construction company named Merit Construction. They are a fairly large construction company in the state of Texas, but one organization was very transactional, very limited in its scope, and the other, which is Merit Construction, was very what we call enlightened, and we were looking at the long-term project and the long-term needs of the organization and the long-term relationship. So there was a lot of open communication. We understood the needs of stakeholders. In fact, we were very intentional in trying to understand the bottom line of the other organization. One organization, the company X, that was more transactional, was very rigid. You know, the program was decided to be a particular way at the onset, and there was very little room for adjustment as we went along. Working with Merit Construction was very different, and it still is very different. We continue to work with Merit. We've worked with them for well over 10 years now, and so we adjust as we go. So there's room to grow, there's room to make mistakes, and there's room to come back together to build something that will meet the needs of the organization as well as the adult ed provider. As always, we're focusing on replicable models that will not only serve Merit for the long term, but will also serve the industry as a whole. So the idea is to be able to take the model from that we've shared with Merit Construction and be able to share it with other construction agencies across the state. When you're working with an employer partner, focusing on what it will take to make it work is the ideal. And so first you should begin thinking out of the box in non-traditional terms. So really forget all that you may have known about adult education and begin thinking out of the box. That it may include the instructional time, that may include the location, that may include the purpose of the class. We've had classes that were built around reducing construction waste. With a particular group of concrete workers, they needed to be able to calculate the slope to meet ADA requirements. And others, it was simply to be able to complete reports more accurately, very important reports. Those classes were held oftentimes in non-traditional areas, very high security areas where additional background checks were needed for our staff. And in other situations, it was built around the need to be able to have classes in the lunchroom. Those classes may have begun at 5:30 in the morning, and we've had classes as late as 10:15 in the evening. And so, again, thinking out of the box, Adult Ed 2.0 is the mindset that you should have now when working with adult education providers. I'll now share this or pass on this presentation to our partners at Tyson.
Thank you very much, Angela. Great presentation. It struck me just how much you're listening to the businesses. That it's no one size fits all model, and very collaborative and evolutionary. Like you evolve the programs. It proves out when you think of Merrick. You've been working with them for over a decade. That shows that the company is seeing a lot of value in a partnership like that. So now we're going to move it over to Donna Davis and Emily Hackerson with the Upward Academy program, which is a project of Tyson Foods. So they're going to bring a perspective that has a lot of footprint and a lot of presence in Texas, but is in many other states. And so I'm going to turn it over to Donna and Emily here, and let's hear about how workplace literacy is helping out with Upward Academy at Tyson Foods.
Great. Thank you so much, Anson, and thank you, Angela. You're doing really great work there in Harris County. So hi, everyone. As Anson mentioned, my name is Donna Davis, and I'm the program director for Upward Academy at Tyson Foods. And with me is my esteemed colleague, Emily Hackerson, and she's a lead program manager for Upward Academy. And we're always so excited to share about our work. And today we're sharing from the business perspective in this conversation. And so we're going to talk to you a little bit about the how and why Tyson Foods chose to build a strong partnership with adult education to bring educational opportunities to our essential workers, or team members, as we call them. And, there may be some of you that wonder why on earth a big company would bother partnering with, a big education agency. We've got a lot of internal training and things that Tyson does to build up the workforce. But, I can assure you that the value of the partnerships that we have built have added so much to our company and added so much to our frontline workforce that we are big proponents of this partnership and excited to talk a bit about it with you. And so earlier, Anson shared, a few of the reasons why businesses would choose to partner. Things like the shifting demographics very much impacts a company like Tyson Foods. Desire to promote from within, also something that makes good business sense for our company. And then as a practice of good corporate citizenship. And so before we get into the nuts and bolts of Upward Academy, I'm going to talk to you about the why, why we created Upward Academy and why it has become such an important part of Tyson. And, as most of you probably know, Tyson has a pretty large footprint across the U.S. and an incredibly diverse workforce. And because of our large size, we have an equally large responsibility to be a great corporate citizen in each of the communities where our team members live and work. And, because of our scale, what we do as a company to support and stabilize our workforce has a ripple effect throughout not only the individuals' lives, but also their families and their communities and across generations. And, it's easy to imagine that a community member who has adequate language skills and confidence to fully participate in civic life is a real stabilizing force in that community. And from a company perspective, we know that if someone is stable at home and in their community, that they bring that stability to work, positively impacting workplace metrics, which are, obviously important to our company, things like attendance and turnover. And when our workforce has access to more education, those individuals also have so many more opportunities for upward mobility and economic stability. So much like Angela was telling us about Kelvis, it's really unlocking a lot of potential for our workforce. And so, we really see this as a winning situation for all partners, for our team members, for the company, for the communities, and we like to think for our adult education partners as well. And because we're often the largest employer in a community, we don't take that lightly. And I can't overstate how helpful and important our partnership is in these communities. Adult ed providers know the local culture, they know local resources, and that the needs of the community. They have a deep understanding of that, and that is an essential part of the successes that we see in Upward Academy students. And so, with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Emily, and she can give you a bit more detailed context, for why we partner with Upward Academy, and she'll also dig in a bit more about Upward Academy. And so, if you could go back just one slide, she can talk through our demographics in a little more detail.
Over to you. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Anson. Yeah, this is actually one of my favorite slides, so I'm glad we can get some extra time with it. As both Donna and Anson mentioned, changing demographics and the look of the American workforce is nothing new to Tyson Foods. As you can see from this language map that we've created from one of our plants, one of the reasons Upward Academy is so important and so valuable to Tyson Foods is because of our diversity. And I'm not sure it's something that everyone always knows when they think of Tyson Foods, but you would be hard pressed to find a more diverse workplace in the US than at Tyson. We have over 121,000 team members, and of those team members, over 60% are immigrants, refugees, or non-native English speakers. And we live in over 150 communities in 29 states. So we have a really large footprint. And as Donna mentioned, the work we do has an impact nationally. And so it's not uncommon actually to find upwards of 30 languages spoken in just one of our facilities. And what's even more staggering is that those facilities aren't typically located in major metropolitan areas where you would expect that kind of diversity. They're actually often located in places like Nebraska, such as this plant. This language map that we have up is from Dakota City, Nebraska, one of our beef facilities that is the workplace of almost 4,000 people. So as you can imagine, Tyson is really already reflects and will continue to reflect the growing diversity of the American workforce. So many more, we anticipate many more companies will begin to look like Tyson Foods already looks all across the country. And with that recognition comes a desire and a need for Tyson as a company to really invest and make it possible for our team members to have the skills or have access to the skills that are going to make them successful at work, but also at home and in their communities. Because as Donna mentioned, and is really the core of Upward Academy, the more confident someone feels in English, for example, the more able they are to communicate with their supervisor, or the more connected they feel to their colleague on the line, or when they go home to their families and they can better communicate with their grandchildren through a language barrier. All of that translates back into the plant because we don't just leave our lives when we show up at the facility every day. And so it's a really powerful rippling impact for us. So Anthony, wouldn't mind slipping to the next slide. A little bit more about what Upward Academy actually is. So Upward Academy, and after Angela's fantastic view of what programs can look like, Tyson Foods invested in Upward Academy as our workplace education program. So classes happen on site in our plant facilities across the country, typically before and after shifts. but we have a growing number of plants that are choosing to provide instruction on the clock because they see the value of making classes accessible to team members. And so our largest offering is ESL, English as a Second Language. And we also provide access to citizenship preparation, which is another really popular option, high school equivalency, also known as the GED, and then financial literacy is another growing need and a source for providing. And then probably most importantly right now in this new time of Corona, we are rolling out over the past year computer labs to all of our programs existing and in the future. Because as all of us are acutely aware right now, having access to learning basic computer skills and knowing how to navigate digitally is an incredible part of our lives and ones that maybe will be more important now and moving forward. So we're really excited to be able to offer that for team members. In general, there are so many reasons, as Donna mentioned, Tyson invested in Upward Academy, but the mission of the program itself was really to reduce the barriers to access to a lot of these resources that so many folks in our community offer, but can be hard to reach for team members based on really basic things like transportation barriers, childcare. Also, maybe if I'm a team member, I don't want to have to go to one new place that I'm not sure I can trust in my community, even if I know it's something that I want, right? Like an adult education center. So bringing classes directly into the plants has been an enormous relief for many of our team members who want and have shared that they would like access to these resources, but it can be difficult when we all have full complex lives. And so I think almost most importantly, none of this would be possible. Upward Academy wouldn't exist if we weren't partnering with adult education at a national scale. And we'll get more into what that looks like, but all of this is made possible because we lean on adult education centers across the country to bring their instructors and their curriculum and expertise directly into our plants. So I'm gonna pass it on to Donna now to maybe give you a better look at sort of where we are and what it all means.
Thank you, Emily. So as you can see from this graphic, we have been really fortunate to build an extensive network of adult education partners across the 18 states you see there in yellow. And this year, we've got 60 facilities where about 2,500 of our essential frontline workforce are current Upward Academy students. And, you know, because of the strong support of our executive leadership who understand the value of this work and this partnership, we have a mandate to launch this program and continue building our partnerships across the rest of our U.S. Tyson footprint in the next couple of years. So the remaining states in gray, we're coming to you. You know, while our commitment to our communities and our team members continues to be a strong driving force for Upward Academy, we also know that as a business, that everything we do needs to have a value, add value to the business. And some of that is you know, really clear to see, but I wanted to sort of break down, you know, the investment that is coming from, you know, the three partners in this great partnership and some of the returns that we have seen. And so on the left, you can see really this is an example of from one facility where the investment from the local facility, from Upward Academy and adult education is all, you know, fairly minimal for that one location. And that, you know, the team member students and the businesses experiencing really a lot of tangible and intangible benefits as our students increasingly participate in Upward Academy classes. And so, you know, what we see this is as each partner is leveraging the funds of the others to meet our shared goals. So like Angela mentioned, you know, they have a mandate to partner with businesses and we now have a mandate to partner in return. And so those shared goals are what keep us moving forward. And we like to say that as our team members increase their education and language skills, that those skills work to stabilize their lives and the lives of their families. And I mentioned that before, but being able to fully integrate into their communities and to access all the necessary resources that strengthen families bring stability to the home. And we know that a stable workforce stabilizes those tangible workplace metrics like attendance and turnover. Stable workforce equals stable metrics. And so, while attendance and turnover are really incredibly important to the company, those intangible benefits are really as important too. So, we've heard from a lot of our students. We ask them early on, what are the things you'd like to learn? And then we ask them later, so how has this impacted you? And we've heard that, it's increased their communication with their supervisor and in the community. And so, we can see that long-term, there's going to be impacts on safety because of the ability to communicate and to understand the safety protocols and things like that. And having access to these services is also creating a greater level of satisfaction for our workforce. They appreciate the opportunity and, feel a lot of gratitude to Tyson. They feel more loyal. And those are things that you just can't put a monetary value on in many ways, but are so important to the company. So, I could go on all day about how we couldn't do what we do without our adult education partners, but I'll turn it back over to Emily to walk through some of the clear benefits of this partnership. So yeah, over to you, Emily. Thank you.
Anna. So as obviously, since the point of this presentation is the benefits of public-private partnership, this shouldn't come as a shocker, but Donna and I and our whole team love to share whenever possible with other companies why this has been such a powerful model for us, because it's not the intuitive response yet for many companies, but it's our stated goal to help others understand how this is something not only manageable and feasible, but brings a lot of heart and fun to your workplace. So what are some of the more tangible benefits and reasons to partner with a public entity? So one, businesses love efficiency. We've found that this model of partnership is extremely efficient. So Tyson Foods, for example, we are not in the adult education business. We are not experts in English language acquisition. We are a manufacturing company. And so it wouldn't make sense for us to try to suddenly develop in-house talent and capabilities to provide a much needed skill set, which is English language learning. But adult ed has that expertise. They've been doing it for a long time and they will continue to do it. And so leaning on adult education has really helped us not have to be the expert all the time. We're the expert in what we do, and we're the expert in what types of skills we'd love to see team members receive. But adult ed gets to step in and do what they do best. So both of us are leveraging our expertise. So that's one aspect. And then similar to efficiency is scale. This might not be as relevant to smaller businesses, but for companies that have a larger footprint, or really any footprint, being able to scale a program like this is really important and valuable. And it can be really difficult if you're trying to do it all in-house. But what makes this partnership so powerful is that its model is replicable. Because we partner with adult ed, they have infrastructure all around the country where we have our plant facilities. And they already have that infrastructure in place for us to lean on and know what those outcomes are going to look, those standardized outcomes that we can say, we're going to partner here and we know the result will look just as good in Nebraska as it will in Texas, or as it will in Maine. But the other really important part is that we know at Tyson that our facilities are not all the same, right? They're rooted in communities that have very different needs, very different approach to what's important, what's valuable. And so we don't want to just come in and say, hey, cookie cutter, this is what you're doing, good luck. The fact that we have the adult ed model that has similar infrastructure means that we can approach it with a local touch, right? We can partner with that trusted local adult education provider that can say, hey, this standard is the same, but I'm going to do it in a way that feels trusted and like I really know what you need, because I probably already know you or ran into you in the grocery store, right? Which really leads to one of the last other reasons that we love partnering with adult education is that it doesn't just stop at the plant, and it doesn't just stop with the instructor and the student on site. As Donna mentioned, and we've really tried to share throughout our entire presentation, is that the ripple effects of investing in your team members at work are so powerful, especially as Tyson, as a company, we recognize that the health of the communities in which we work is just as important as the health of the team members at work. And so, as we mentioned, partnering locally means that those are new relationships team members are building with instructors that are going to help them feel more confident as they go out into their own community and build relationships with institutions or organizations that can help them access further resources that they need or build relationships that are going to impact everyone. So we are extremely grateful for the partnership we've been building and will continue to build with adult education, and are always available to share our experiences with others that might be looking to do the same.
Well, I want to thank Donna and Emily. I mean, I'm just always astounded to hear the diversity of those plants and then the number of languages and communities that are engaged. We're used to that in ESL. That's kind of our stock and trade. But I can't imagine running a business in that environment. So it really underscores the value of these partnerships, bringing the expertise of ESL experts in the communities to the company that's trying to run a business and trying to do production and trying to be safe. So I want to thank you both for that. And as we move forward in the presentation here to round out the hour, I love the dimensions here on the benefits, but I really wanted to move towards talking about partnerships and how to partner. So if you're listening in and you're going, I'm doing this, I want to do this in my community. What are the dimensions I need to look at and be open to? And so I think the first is really being careful about identifying the partnership that you want to develop. And what you want or what the company wants may be different than what the real needs are. And it takes collaboration, listening, and interaction with the business and with the ESL provider to really find out what those needs are. We've seen in Texas with the proliferation of these programs at a small mom and pop level all the way up to major corporations that we work with, that the time spent up front has multiplier effects in terms of the quality, the duration, and the longevity of the partnership, and definitely on the return on investment. I loved Donna's perspective on the return on investment, because that's really the insider's look of the value that the public entity here, the ESL provider, can provide. Be very open. Number two, to be what it's going to take to be successful. If you go in with your mind made up about how you want it to be on both sides, from the business side or from the provider side, you're going to really limit your opportunities. And sometimes it's hard to do. You know, sometimes in education, we want to come in with the curriculum that we love. We want to come in with how we teach our class at night with the general population. This is a different environment, and it's got a different customer and a different set of customers: the business, the manager, the foreman, the supervisors, the HR department, whoever it is, and the worker. And those are different customers than our general population in many ways. And so you go in knowing you're going to learn. You listen well, like Angela does. When I hear Angela talk, I'm always taking mental notes and saying, I want to be like Angela. She really knows how to build those partnerships, and she really understands. And then really just that driving factor in the discussion. What is keeping people engaged, and how can you grow that? I always tell my providers, don't go into the meeting as an education provider. go in as a solution provider, because in education and workforce development, we can provide access to all kinds of other services that maybe we don't provide, but we know partners that do. And that brings more value to the business that doesn't want to have to go forge those independent relationships in different areas. They want someone that can bring a package of services. And then the ESL or the GED class or the high school equivalency is there also. So creativity, flexibility is just kind of the basis for what these programs thrive on. And the success that you end up with is almost always very different from what you came in with thinking about at the very beginning. I know, having worked with Tyson for a while, I hear that story over and over. Merrick Brothers, that was brought up by Angela, that's been going on for 10 years. I started that partnership with a group of businesses in 2007 or 8. And here we are in 2020. It's been over 10 years, really. And to see that grow, and I remember back what it was in 2007 or 8 and go, wow, it's dramatically different now. But that's the success, is that it's evolved and it's become a value. And there's equal contributors. A lot of times I hear people say, well, why would we should make the company pay for all of this? They've got the money. But when you looked at Donna's slides, you really see the company puts a lot on the table at the corporate level for Tyson, at the plant level, and then the adult basic education. So it is an equitable partnership in terms of resources also. And that's not often understood by our education community as well. I have learned it over the years for sure, as I've seen what businesses put on the table to make these things happen. So where do you go from here? Well, we've provided some resources here that you can find out what's happening in your community. You saw the map that Emily shared and Donna shared with where they are in America and where they're going in America. I like that story. And I look at that map and I think of my peers, my state directors in those states, and say, like, I'm calling those folks up, because we're going to get this going in the states in Oklahoma and Florida and California and Arizona, where the next phase is for Tyson. But if you're not in an area with the Tyson plant, or if you're somewhere else and want to do something in addition to working with Tyson Upward Academy, we've provided links to the National Literacy Directory, where you can find local program service providers in your local area across America. And then 2 different sites, the Directory of State Adult Education Directors and the same sort of directory from the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Career and Technical Adult Education. There you can find people like me, the contacts for the state directors. And that's often a good place to start, because we have the best perspective of where the services are, who is strong at doing what in the state. And so if you're a big corporation coming in, definitely start at that level. If you're at a local level, you can make those arrangements locally. So that's a good view of where you can go, but you're going to have dozens of other questions. And so we wanted to make our door open for you. If you have questions specifically about anything in this presentation, you can write me. I do a lot of email, and I like to collaborate and help others. So don't think, oh, he's too busy for me. That's not the case. I do this every day, and it's something that brings a lot of value to me. Angela in the Houston area, or if you're a local provider, is really one of the best we have in Texas. That really has worked in all those different companies you saw her highlight on making ends meet with the business and making these programs happen. And then if you're in a program and going to work in an area where Tyson's located, Donna and Emily's contact information is there, and they would be very, very thrilled to work with you on those kind of collaborations for Upward Academy or other things. So I want to wrap it up. We're at the hour, and I'm thrilled that you spent some time with us. Don't hesitate to reach out. Go do this work in your local community. Don't let this lie undone, because it is a great value for the business and for the ESL and workforce development organizations. Thank you very much, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.